We're back. Bullish Bitcoin banter and bullshit. Brought to you by, you guessed it, the usual suspects, Mr. All-In, aka the Trillion Dollar Man, Dr. Evil 10%, aka the People's Champ, myself, Sir Neverlook, aka the Excellence of Execution, and surprise, surprise, no surprise, Mrs. No Show is nowhere to be seen, aka No Show. And we did it. We finally did it. 100K. Yay.
Oh,
What's that you've got on Dr. Evil 10% for
don't know.
the listeners?
Oh, the little treat
Listeners and watchers?
we've hit over 100K. It's
Yeah.
I Told You So t-shirt, which was modelled by Mr. All In about 2 or 3 weeks ago when he got overexcited. What's
Brilliant.
gonna be for a milli?
Did you get one yourself, Mr.
Did,
All-In?
oh yeah, yeah. Well, I bought it. I wore it last week, didn't I?
Ah, right. Yeah, yeah,
I was thinking for the millie, I reckon we just do it naked,
yeah.
just in case the YouTube ban.
I was going to say the YouTube ban. Yeah.
Let's just do it with the cameras pointed at our crotches.
I think we. I think
I'll be
we.
fully erect for the entire pod.
Green candlesticks.
Yeah. Oh my God, I'll paint my dick green. And like it'll be fully erect for the entire pod, and all you can see is a green candle. And we'll just
For a
do the pod
milli.
as normal. We're
Or
wearing
for a
men.
milli, we go to Vegas.
I'm painting our dicks green and
Yeah,
hang out.
and paint our dicks green in Vegas.
Wow.
And just
This
do
is
the
a new
pod.
side to Mr. All-In. Sorry, Dr. Evil 10%. This is a money man. You can see he's on the road to FU money.
Yeah, you'll just be in the penny slots, like betting $10 anyway. Like fucking.
So I don't want to throw away all my money.
I'd give you $1 billion and you wouldn't like gamble more than 20 of it. Just in case, rainy day.
Yeah, yeah. And when he says 20, he means 20 cents
Yeah.
of the penny slot machines.
Hmm. But I must admit, when I actually like was just reviewing the agenda before we came on, then I can't believe this is the first pod we've done over 100K. Because I think
Yeah,
the last two we've been at like 99 or something, and it's just been I think in the marketplace there has been a little bit of like hesitancy to go. 69 was the last all-time high, and
yeah.
that was supposed to be going to 100 then, and now we've hit 99. Like, is this the top for this like 4 year cycle? Is this now essentially everyone thought we're going to blast through 100K, but in reality we're going to bounce off it, not actually go over it, and we're going to regress back to 60 or 30K or whatever. And literally in the last 5 days, we've gone from 99K to like 103, back down to like 95 or something, back to 104. I think now we're back down to like 94 or something. So slowly but surely, just literally over the last 5 days, we've already just normalized 100K,
Yeah,
like going
yeah.
over it, under it, over it, under it. There's no big reaction to 100K Bitcoin is what we're largely seeing at this point. And yeah, it's just nice to see, really, I guess, because it's something that I didn't want to say when we were talking about our predictions for the end of year. It was like we do need a 20 or 30% regression. Like at some point in every single bull market, we get two or three 20 to 30% pullbacks before we then recover that and then go higher.
It's surely not 20%.
Yeah, easy, easy. Yeah, it's very hard to see in the charts, but essentially, like the one of the first ones that obviously I was part of was the one was the like the $1,000 to $20,000 one. We went to from one to
Yeah,
five
I
quite
do
quick.
see it actually. So on the one which we're in, it screamed up to 40 grand on the 9th of Jan, and then it pulled back to 32. So that was a 20%. And then it screamed up to 55 and pulled back to 46.
Mm.
So um, almost 10%, and then peaked at 61. So yeah, I just never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
I
And
wonder what I was thinking last time. The sheer panic as it dropped 20% on that first drop.
oh yeah, you're terrified.
Right.
And on your first
Yeah.
cycle, you're like, oh my God, I've missed it. I should have sold the top, blah 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 blah. And so in this cycle, it's been a little bit alien because it's largely just ticked up nice and slowly. And now we're at 100K and there's been no big reaction. It,
Yeah.
back in the old cycle, if you go rewind 4 years, we'd have regressed from 100K straight back to 70.
Yeah.
In the space of 3 days, everybody fucking panics. Oh my God, it's over. And then a month later, we're 150K and everybody's wrecked, right? Other than the good old hodlers. And then we'll get to 150 and then another 30% comes off. We go back down to 100K or something. Everybody else sells. Then a month later, we're at 250K. It's very, very peak and trophy. But it does feel like the asset is maturing, and it feels like we're just ticking up nice and slowly, and because the volume is huge, right? We had Sailor. It's not even on the agenda today. I couldn't even bother adding the gigacock yet again. But he bought another 2 billion yesterday.
Really?
And yeah, 2 billion worth of Bitcoin he bought yesterday. The price went down. Right? So
Wow. I
um
didn't know that. Yeah.
there's
There we
there's
go.
billions, and like BlackRock is still buying billions. There's obviously we've got the US government that are selling billions. And what I can assume is that a lot of this buying and selling is just being done largely
Was the
off
two
the
billion
exchanges.
was the 2 billion of Sailor MicroStrategy or
Mm.
him himself?
Yeah, MicroStrategy, yeah.
Okay, okay. I wonder what I'm going to quickly Google what his standings are as well.
He has over 400,000 Bitcoin now.
Wow.
Yeah. And another thing on
Yeah.
him, actually, it's not on the agenda. It's something I saw yesterday. I just thought I'd bring it up super quick, which is he actually went to Dave Portnoy's house a couple
I
of days ago.
saw something on Twitter, but I didn't actually watch it.
Yeah. So the last time Dave Portnoy talked about Bitcoin was about 4 years ago, and it was the Winklevoss twins went to see him, and they started talking about asteroids that were full of gold, and that Elon Musk is going to grab them and mine them, and the price of gold will go to zero, so therefore Bitcoin has value. And ironically, at that point, Bitcoin was at about 13K, and Dave Portnoy had $2 million worth of it. After the Winklevoss twins visited him and told him about asteroids and gold mining, he sold everything. He sold everything pretty much for break even. If he had not been confused the hell out of him by the Winklevoss twins, he'd have largely 10x'd his money from that point. I think it's actually 11K or something. Bitcoin was at 11K, and so now he had Michael Saylor come in, and Michael Saylor, I must admit, I think he had a bit of a mixed performance. I think he tried to bring it into Dave Portnoy's world, which is by doing some sport analogies and stuff, but I think fundamentally, it's like how we were discussing before the pod, where you've got people that you know or work colleagues that are kind of naysayers in Bitcoin. Largely, what Michael Saylor was saying is, Dave, you are one of those. So once you just buy like 1, 2, 3% of your net worth of Bitcoin, you become you become a Bitcoiner. And it's so much simpler once you become a Bitcoiner because you don't want to fight against it. You don't look for the negative. You start looking for the positives. And what tends to happen once you are in that mode is that all you do is increase your allocation. And so you're saying like start with your 2, 3, 4, 5%. But in reality, what a 2% allocation to Bitcoin is, it's like an insurance policy. You're not going to get rich off an insurance policy. All that largely will do is pay for the things that you lost. But if you really want to become a maxi and benefit from this evolution of money, you need to get to at least a 30% allocation of your net worth. And Dave Portnoy's worth about 200 million. So that would translate to about 60 million worth of Bitcoin for
I
him.
just don't know how he's so rich considering what an idiot he is.
Oh man, he's just well, Dave Portnoy. I think investing wise, like yeah, but when it comes to getting attention online, he is an elite level troll, which coming from
Yeah.
probably an amateur troll such as myself, I have a huge him. He knows how to stir up attention and fundamentally get eyeballs on content and on videos. So that's what he has done his whole life, and he's done very well out of it. But when it comes, he would never claim to be the smartest person in the room, probably in nearly every room he's in. So he's a fairly humble and like self-aware guy. He knows where his strengths are, and it's with drunk football lads. That's his
Yeah.
market, right? He's not claiming to be like some high intellectual guy. He just feels that he knows what drunk lads want, and he feeds them that. And he's made hundreds of millions of dollars basically doing that. So fair play. But when it comes to then, okay, what's the future of money? Yeah, clearly he's out of his depth and he has paid a heavy price. And so, as we say, you get Bitcoin at the price you deserve. He was in, he had $2 million worth of it at 11K. He sold everything. And now he's going to have to buy potentially $60 million worth of Bitcoin at 100K. He's going to get 10% of the Bitcoin he could have had. But if he listens to Saylor, that will be the best investment he ever did. The worst investment he could do is not listen and go, I'm salty. I could have bought it at 11K. I don't want to buy it at 100. I'll wait. I'll wait for a dip.
It's always the way with Dave Portnoy. He tells us that he admits what a mistake he made about Bitcoin. He's going back in. And he goes back in and he fucks something up again. Hence his name, Solid Hands.
True enough. He hasn't had, he's never had someone like Saylor in there. He's only had the Winklevoss twins and then a load of Bitcoiners slating him in his replies. So now he's actually had 20 minutes of Saylor. Let's see.
I've got no faith.
Yeah, I think he'd be absolutely insane to not just buy 10 or 20 million dollars worth and just forget about it. Because I did actually like the way he was talking about it in his little interview as well. He just went, how much of my portfolio should I put in if I don't want to think about it for 10 years? And that's when Saylor did
That's
break it down for him. And he went, well, you want 10 or 20% of it to be your spends, because clearly like a high life of, a high quality of life. Another 10 or 20% you probably want in some tech stocks that, will do okay. But then, then another 10 or 30% you want hedged away for a long period of time. And that has to be Bitcoin. And then once you have
yeah.
that, you'll see how that 30% is outperforming the rest. And eventually you'll put all of it in. But right now, where you are today, Dave, start with 10 and get it to 30. And I like the fact he was talking over a 10-year period. Because, Saylor said at least 4, which obviously, as we all know, the halving cycles go in 4-year periods. So that is a good time preference to pick. Anything less leaves you open to selling at the bottom of a bear market. But the fact that Dave was saying 10, it's like, right, you're starting to get into the right mindset of stopping thinking that this is an asset that you can get in and out of in 6 months. No, if you think 10 years, by the time you get anywhere near the end of that period, you'll be a real Bitcoiner.
Should we stop talking about Dave Portnoy and talk about the 100K celebration?
Let's do it.
It starts with a Brian Armstrong post, doesn't it? So it comes up with a nice little statistic. If you bought $100 of Bitcoin when Coinbase was founded in June 2012, it would now be worth about $1.5 million. If you kept the $100 of US dollar, sorry, I don't need to say of US dollar, you'd only be able to purchase about $73 worth of goods today. So my kind of point about here is I feel that Brian's lying. No way can you buy the equivalent of $73 worth of goods from 2012.
Yeah.
I think it's more like
Correct.
$37.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's got his
That
numbers
is,
the wrong way around. It's not 73, it's 17 or 20.
yeah. Well, yeah, it's
Yeah,
nowhere
because
73.
we've had inflation of prices of what I think around the world reported between 50% to doubled, so 50 to 100% over the last 4 years. So throw that on top of what you've got for the previous 8, and it's certainly not going to be 27% inflation. That may be a CPI lie. Actually, I don't even think CPI would be that low. So it's been double digits for 2 years, hasn't it? And always just stacked up on its own in the last 4 years. It's 27% without even actually doing compound.
Yeah, literally the last 2 years has reduced your $100 to 73.
Yeah.
So if you factor in the previous 10, come on.
Yeah.
I don't want to take us off on a tangent, but one of the questions that I had for you guys, just going back to the Dave Portnoy thing, and then this as well, is the money that you've invested into Bitcoin, had you have not done that, what do you think that money would be doing, or what would you have to show for that money as an alternative? Because I don't miss the money that I've put in and think, oh yeah, but I could have got X, Y, and Z. And obviously, we've all put in a vast amount of money. So it's not like it's a tenner down the back of the sofa. But
Being a grilled cheese sandwich. I think for me,
would it have been another extension? Another bathroom renovation?
A penis extension, probably.
Would have been sexy.
Yeah.
I
think going back when I was looking at what to buy, I was looking for a solution. So it could have been something as simple as gold instead. I'd come to the realization of what a house of cards, the financial system was, and this is during the lockdown. So when I made, my investments, it would have been into something like that, or maybe another house. Like I knew that something really wasn't right, and I was looking, trying to figure it out.
You'd have been a property guy.
I think I would have been a property guy, or I would have just continued to have held on to the cash again, as we were speaking before, but just not knowing where to put that money. So I would have just continued to just, put it in, but knowing that that was bad because it would have been shrinking in the bank, and I would have needed to have done something with it rather than just leaving it there. But then, again, all of us, we know we wouldn't have ever wasted the money, but I can't think of anything else that I would have done with it.
Funny enough, I was saving up to upgrade my car at the time.
Okay,
so actually, it was a proper Fiat thing, which I had.
Yeah.
And instead of buying a car, I bought Bitcoin, and literally I could buy. Well, I suppose there's been mass inflation, so it would have been like 5 or 6 cars in place of that car now.
Yeah.
But with inflation, it's probably more like 4.
I see some of my friends actually, they bought cars, and they look great, and I just smile, and I'm like, oh yeah, nice color, and that's it.
Yeah.
I just think,
I think the rest of the money would have been like property or gold or something like that. Like I said, I was looking for a solution then.
For me, well, I know what I'd have done, because I put the rest of the money that I had left over from buying Bitcoin into Tesla. So I was just backing who I thought was the smartest guy on the planet to go.
Yeah.
Why would I not back him? And so So all that happened really over the next 5 or 6 years was Tesla did do its thing. It didn't quite outperform Bitcoin, but to be fair, it wasn't far off. And then over those 5 years, I essentially just orange pilled myself to such a degree. I ended up selling that Tesla and converting that to Bitcoin as well. So yeah, I was looking to make, to get out. So it was, I still to this day think investing is almost like a complete cheat code for life. For
Yeah.
me to have no input, literally zero input on Tesla, who's being run by the smartest guy on the planet, and I can just go online and buy some of their shares, and then all those some of the smartest people on the planet then go and build the best electric car ever built, and then somehow I make loads of money. It still doesn't quite make sense, right? Because
That's because of fiat system. The whole point that you've got to invest is part of the whole fiat world.
yeah, but even in Bitcoin land, right? Investing is a strange concept because I guess like a lot of the gains that I got from Tesla were like there's a lot of inflation that is hidden in there. So I guess you can probably tone back a lot of, as we know, like the S&P going up by 15% a year. It's all nonsense. That's just fake. So I guess you could tone it down, but but in essence, like back like back in 2016 or something, like Tesla being successful was still an edge case. But I was a big fan of Elon, for years and years before. So it was just like, well, of course this guy's going to do it. He's the smartest guy on the planet. Like this guy's not going to fail. Like, he's gonna smash it. So yeah, I think if Bitcoin didn't exist, I'd have put it into him. But now I'd be still sitting here with probably slightly less money because Tesla still did epically well. Um, but I would be terrified because the money that I have is still in the fiat system, and I
Yeah,
would be
and
very
you'd also
conscious that
have
it's about to collapse, and I am dependent on it existing because if it collapses, all my money in Tesla gets stolen or frozen, or so I'm much more relaxed now because
Yeah. Yeah.
my
but
money
you
is
would also
stored away.
you'd also be in your fiat job as well.
Why is that?
Yeah. Because you wouldn't invest in Bitcoin.
Well, no, but if I'd have shoved it all in Tesla, it wouldn't have performed hugely different.
I
But
mean, I've
wouldn't it?
just put the car, I just, sorry, I've just put the chart into the chat so we could take a look, live actions.
Yeah, because I put about 5% of what I had in Tesla and the rest in Bitcoin, and the 5% it did really, really well. It
Yeah.
was,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, when you look at it on the chart there, it's they're pretty much neck and neck until the end, and and
that's
off
So
right.
when
goes
did you buy
Bitcoin.
when did you buy into Tesla? 2016-ish?
Yeah,
So we look back then, 2016, $16, and we're now at 400. So that's 20x.
Yeah.
So literally, if you put say 10 grand in, that would be yeah, 20 grand in, that'd be
yeah,
400k out.
yeah. So the
So
only
wow, yeah.
so over this cycle, basically, Bitcoin's gone from roughly the 1,000, so 1,000 to 100,000, so it's 100x. But I got out of Tesla about 3 or 4 years ago. It, when Tesla, like,
Yeah, that's when it peaked the first time at 350 or so, wasn't it?
yeah, that's when I became a full-on maxi and just went. I think I actually think I even discussed it on this pod. Like Elon was a pro Bitcoin guy, and I was holding a load of Tesla, supporting the business. Then he came out as a bit anti-Bitcoin and said it was like boiling oceans or something. So I went, you know what, Elon, fuck you. I'm selling my Tesla, put it into Bitcoin. And thanks, Elon. That was a great fucking decision. Yeah, Bitcoin always finds its way. Yeah. I read up the gains and then Elon talked out about get Bitcoin, pissed me off. I sold it, bought Bitcoin, and then Bitcoin went to the moon, and Tesla just stagnated. Yeah.
There we have it.
Beautiful.
All right. So yeah, I know it took us off piece there, but let's carry on into the next story as well, because this one definitely is a worthy and notable mention, and it's our friend John McAfee. Rest in peace, Mr. McAfee. So in June 2019, from Cuba, John McAfee said, if Bitcoin breaks 100K, you can bet it will break 1 million.
Yeah.
And just let that sink in. 2019, he said that 5 years ago now, or over 5 years ago. And ultimately, this guy was a smart ass motherfucker. He was on it. And I think he's 1000% right. So if you think still that it is too early, let's give him his due, and there's another 10x on its way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just feel like we always say it's inevitable. I think I said that several times at my Christmas party last week. But once you've hit this point, and once you're getting integrated into financial system, once governments are talking about having a reserve of Bitcoin, it does just become inevitable, and doesn't it? Because if the US does it, and then it means 198 countries are going to do it.
Yeah.
The US doesn't go by itself. Certainly, the UK follows the US usually a couple of years after, though. Got your finger
It's the
up.
bureaucracy, isn't it? That
Point of that.
is the long thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just, it's like that good idea amongst a group of friends. Like when one person does it, I don't know, they buy a new car, everyone else wants to do it, don't they?
Yeah. In retrospect, it was inevitable. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Or
the
one
crazy
person
thing is,
taps out the system and the rest try to follow.
literally, Bitcoin is inevitable. It's why like people don't get it, and it's like always a bit of a mystery why the number goes up. We've talked about it a million times, but essentially the value that we create as human beings will gravitate towards the hardest money, the money that holds its value the best or appreciates the most. And so it is inevitable. We've tested Bitcoin against all the other forms of money, and it is by far the best. So it's a matter of time until all that value ends up in Bitcoin. It literally is inevitable. And
Yeah.
for John McAfee, that tweet where he says if Bitcoin breaks 100K, you can bet it'll break 1 million. That is in reply to Tyler Winklevoss that says if Bitcoin breaks 10K, you can bet it's going to break 15K. So that clearly is around that time. Bitcoin just broke 10K, and everyone's really excited about Bitcoin breaking 10K, which obviously was clearly a massive milestone for Bitcoin. And he's trying to go, oh yeah, it's going to keep going. It's going to keep going to 15K, which obviously it did. Then it just broke 20, and then the bear market hit, and we went back down to 3. Horrible. That was one of the worst bear markets. Well, it's probably my first bear market. It was fucking horrendous.
I feel like we're at the point where, you're going to hit the bear markets at a point we said when, it's going to become almost a super cycle when it doesn't hit the bear market, and it is when that momentum hits. And like I said, I'm starting to look at it and go now, is it going to be this cycle where momentum hits, where it doesn't actually dip down? Because we're not talking about people, oh yeah, it's 100K, I'm going to sell. We're going, well, we got MicroStrategy at 2%. We've got El Salvador got reserves. We've got US talking about reserves. We've got the Winklevoss twins. Then we got the ETFs. So we've got all this kind of underlying layer which isn't selling. And so you kind of go, you're not going to see that level of volatility anymore, I don't think. You're going to see some.
Yeah. And equally as well, I think there's so many of us that are so smartly attuned mentally as well that if Bitcoin, there has to be some sort of world catastrophic travesty to ever go down that low once again. But if it did, we're selling everything just to get in to buy more. But there's so many people now that have that mental awareness to be like, right, I don't care what's going on, I'm gonna go in.
I
And so
suppose
it would
the
quickly
question
bounce
is,
back.
what are you selling to go all in?
Yeah. Yeah,
Do
that's the thing. You're right.
you
You're
reckon
right.
you can sell pensions? Someone could buy it at a
No.
discount. So you go literally, say I've got a pension for 100k. Do you reckon someone would be willing to buy it off you for like, I don't know, 30k?
You literally just need your dry powder on the side, don't you? Ready and waiting for the time. But God knows when that time might be.
Yeah, it'd be a hell of a thing to sell your pension. 'Cause the only way you get to do it is they'd have to trust that you take your pension.
But surely
If it's
there's a
you,
potential agreement. I can't see this not actually being real, where you kind of go, you know what, I want my current money, you can have my future money.
yeah, but well, potentially, yeah. It's just there's a lot of trust involved, and obviously there's also a risk on the side of the buyer that you survive long enough that your pension is paid for enough time that it's profitable.
Hmm.
Which
Something
which is a
we should.
beautiful way of actually realizing that pensions are very risky. Because would you buy someone's pension? No. Well, why wouldn't you buy it? Because it's fucking risky, isn't it? They might die like 2 years after they take their pension, and therefore you did not get your money's worth.
Agreed.
So there is a downside to Bitcoin hitting 100K. Pedro fucking won his bet, didn't he?
Oh, Pedro's base now. Pedro has turned proper anti or establishment.
Yeah.
Is he finally?
I don't
He's
know what's happened. I replied to one of his tweets and said, "What's happened to you, Pedro? You used to be a right status cook."
Yeah.
If
Yeah,
he
Did
did
he dare
read it,
respond?
no, he didn't respond because I just expected to probably block. But I kind of went, you know what? It's a bit of a compliment because he was a status cook. He wanted to do more lockdowns and wear masks, and he did some other weird shit after that as well.
it's a pandemic.
Whereas now he's just gone like, fuck the government, they're not good for you. You
Yeah.
kind of think he stopped.
Although he made a massive fuck up. At the bottom of this bear market, he rebranded his old podcast from What Bitcoin Did.
Yeah.
I think he sold it, didn't he? Someone else is running it.
Did he?
Yeah, I think he sold it. So he started a new thing.
Yeah, Mr. Obnoxious.
Nah, I think someone else runs it because I saw one where he talks about what Bitcoin did and someone else was doing it. So I think he potentially got bored of it.
Yeah.
He had the second best podcast out there, literally. But no, he had good credibility in the space. He had obviously great guests on there, and the name does what it says on the tin.
Yeah, I must admit, I think the name was pretty shit, if I'm being honest. But at least I had Bitcoin in there somewhere. Right. So
Yeah.
whatever. Like what Bitcoin did. I guess this is a different version of like freaking the four Bs, right? Like, so I won't shit on it too much. I never liked the name like hugely, but the fact that after however many years he rebranded to Mr. Obnoxious and then essentially allowed him to expand outside of Bitcoin and talk about other things. Yeah, it was like another. Is it a bit similar to what Pomp did,
Mm.
which is essentially drop Bitcoin, move into finance, and start talking wider. But then the second Bitcoin hits 100K, guess what happens to Pedro and Pomp? All they want to fucking talk
Oh.
about is Bitcoin. They're like, oh, welcome back, boys. Yeah, the attention is here, the money is here. Now you want to talk about is Bitcoin, but in a bear market, oh, you suddenly want to talk about everything finance or everything else that's going on in the world. Like to a certain extent, I get it because you got to pay the bills. But Pedro used to put all his P&L online, and I must admit I didn't check it, but last time I did, he's making like 50 grand a month off
Yeah.
advertising. So I'm
Yeah.
like,
Now,
Your Bitcoin podcast ain't doing too bad, mate.
I'm looking on my website, and there's 2 episodes advertised, and both those don't feature what's his name, Pedro, and it's some bald guy. It might be me who's running it now. I'm not quite sure.
Hold
His
on.
editor was bold.
Yeah, he had his what was his name? It was basically like the right hand man, and then he started to come on the shows with him.
Oh, with Pedro, so it might just be a
Yeah,
handover, or potentially, like I said, it
yeah.
might be a buyout, but it's still going. So there's 2 episodes there. I thought I'd seen, but it's still running. So maybe he just wants to move on to something else. But yeah, I'm sticking up for Pedro a bit now because his tweets have been a little bit spicy lately. And it's just a bit odd.
No, he's still an epic level cunt. Anyway, I remember, like, fair play to Elon for he's changed what a block is. So a block used to be you can't see any of their content, they can't see any of yours. Whereas now you can still see their content, you just can't interact with it. So for the first time, I can actually see Pedro's content, and it occasionally comes up in my feed. I obviously can't comment or reply or do anything with it. I can see it. And the guy is still the same level of faggoty retard that he was 4 years ago before he blocked me. So
I'm going to disagree because
fuck that guy.
He has changed what he started talking about now. So
he hasn't. Just wait. He was always talking a good game back in the day, and then he tweeted out the fact that it's a pandemic of the unvaccinated. And I see the same things now. Like he tweets so much stuff that is very aligned to Bitcoin. And then like some random war will kick off and you'll just support it. Like Pedro, you're a fucking NPC in Bitcoin clothing.
But anyway, moving on. Should we talk about everyone's favorite operator of the money printer?
Let's do it.
Jerome.
Yeah, JP.
Jerome. Oh,
really interesting little clip here. Is this a click moment?
Yeah, go on. I'll click it in. Oh, how do I start?
Dollar war in the Federal Reserve itself, in terms of the system. What do you think of that idea?
I don't think that's how people think about it. I mean, it's so, people use Bitcoin as a speculative asset, right? It's like gold. It's just like gold, only it's virtual. It's digital. People are not using it as a form of payment or as a store of value. It's highly volatile. It's not a competitor for the dollar. It's really a competitor for gold. That's really how I think of it.
Yeah, they saw it.
Yeah, here it's funny. Like he says that Bitcoin isn't a competitor for the dollar; it's a competitor for gold. And what he actually talks about is it's a speculative investment, and he says that gold is too. And I'm kind of going, gold isn't. Gold is probably one of the most stable investments which you could ever make. It doesn't have the volatility. It doesn't increase with inflation, mind. It stopped tracking out when we brought around the ETFs. But he says it's not a store of value like the dollar. And I'm pretty sure the dollar isn't a store of value as our story 2 ago.
No, but it's weird, isn't it? It's seeing Jerome Powell, and it's similar to how we started the pod, which is the evolution of the naysayers of Bitcoin, which is it's a criminal enterprise, money laundering, criminal activity, and now you've got the head of the Fed essentially saying, which by the way, the head of the Fed should have been backing the US dollar with gold.
Yeah.
He came off the gold standard only 50 years ago, and he's now going, Bitcoin is a competitor to gold, which, whilst that is still an insult to Bitcoin, in the world of the financial system, having essentially the number one guy in finance, which is Jerome Powell, and head of the US Federal Reserve, who prints all the dollars, for him to say that Bitcoin, he didn't really think about it, but because it's not as good as the US dollar. However, only competes with gold. I think on that day that that clip got released, Bitcoin pumped 10% because even though it was a bit of a passive aggressive insult towards Bitcoin, it's a huge compliment because to put Bitcoin alongside gold, that's the last time money had value. So to even suggest that Bitcoin is the same as gold by someone that,
Yeah, it's not so much value. It's almost like what do we say? Like value over time, isn't it? Like it can't just be eroded simply. Like they could unpeg it, which is always a massive flaw of gold, back currency, and also it always increased. And I think
yeah,
what is it? It's one of our next story. Actually, it's the next story. Kind of talks about the inflation of gold as well and how it would massively erode. But I feel like enabled some control about it.
Well, him saying that, obviously, gold market cap and then obviously Bitcoin. Gold market cap currently is 17.4 trillion, according to Google. And Bitcoin is at 1.73, and it's the eighth largest assets. So it's well on its way, of course.
That's interesting.
From
A tenth now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw something else which I was going to add to the agenda, but it was only a small thing. But it's Bitcoin has like the market cap of Bitcoin is larger than Canada in terms of their GDP. I don't know if I'm going to double check it because I didn't have time to fact check it.
you have to say sorry to Canada.
Yeah,
The
Sorry,
GDP, 2.14 trillion, so it's close.
so it's close. Yeah.
It sounds like it's about on par with Mexico. Oh, brilliant. But I think this one runs quite nicely into the next one, which is about gold and about gold standard. Is that it was always meant to be you found 2% more gold every year. It meant that you could expand the monetary supply by 2% every year. And Bukulele is saying that they found 3 trillion. So based on it being 17, that would be what's that? Well, it's bordering on a sixth of it. So what's that? 17%.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
so literally
Literally
that could
just
be
randomly found like
over
another
1 year. It's bordering on 20% increase in gold. So like if you're on a gold standard, your how much you can actually buy is just being eroded by almost a fifth. Do you remember that one which we had a few years ago, or maybe 2 years ago? Was it in Zambia where they found?
Yeah.
I think it was literally half the world's gold again, so it would have
Yeah.
eroded your purchasing power by 50%. And then what you talked about earlier about the asteroids, which it's meant to be even more than what's on Earth. So literally, it then be your money's now worth about 10% of what it's worth because we found this gold on the asteroid. So it is a little bit of a flawed system now that gold isn't as scarce as you first thought, and there's new techniques.
Yeah, what I found really interesting about the story is the fact that El Salvador essentially had a mining ban. There's regulation that got passed in El Salvador where
Who
they got
banned it?
told, well, who knows? Probably the US fucking government. But there was regulation passed at some point that meant El Salvador couldn't mine. And part of what Bukele did when he came in is he removed that regulation and went, let's have a look what's in here. And he hasn't just found gold. He's found tin. He's found like platinum. He's found a whole host of minerals that exist in El Salvador that he has been told explicitly to not mine. And it's again, it just plays into the whole conspiracy of these countries are prevented from becoming their own kind of wealth
Yeah, so in
Well,
2017,
not only that, it's just to, not to even better themselves. No, take the money off us, or we'll keep you down there, and we'll effectively place laws and regulations in your country to ensure that you don't come close to us like a
it
moat.
sounds something like the WEF have come in and done as part of the loans of the IMF. So reading it, Salvador was the first country in the world to ban the mining of metals in 2017, warning of the harmful effects of the chemicals used in mining, like cyanide and mercury. So it's like you aren't allowed to dig for gold because you use certain chemicals so you can keep being poor, remain being poor. It kind of like reminds me of Sri Lanka. Don't use any pesticides on your crops because we want you to remain poor. And when you're super poor, we'll give you a bit more money, which then you have to pay back at a high interest.
Yeah, or ideally, we will pay you a lot of money in exchange. Once you are so poor and so desperate, we will buy your mining lands off you for a very healthy sum, and then take all the precious minerals away. So, as Buklele seems to have uncovered here, and I must admit, I put this story on here, last week. It was December 6th, the story went live. It's December 10th when we're talking about it. It's 4 days later. So I've seen a number of naysayers say that the 3 trillion number is hugely overestimated by Buklele. And he admits in his video that will be linked in this video that it's an estimate. Right? They've mined a number of areas and they've found a certain amount of gold, which and various other metals that suggest there's certain quantities underneath. It's not confirmed. They don't definitely have 3 trillion worth of gold underneath El Salvador. They just have estimated that is there.
Yeah.
But fundamentally, it's totally nuts that why was there ever regulation on El Salvador to not mine?
Like I said, it sounds weffy.
The only rational explanation you can ever have for it is that they were told to do this because they didn't want this nation to become independently wealthy. They didn't want them to discover all these metals. They wanted to essentially just have them in their back burner to go, look, we don't need all that wealth right now. We've got a load of gold, a lot of tin, a lot of platinum, a lot of blah, blah, blah from over here. We're going to use this. And at some point, we'll take El Salvador out of the debt cycle we've put them in, invade them for whatever reason, in some shape or form, it'll be in like under the guise of helping them from an external force that's invading them. And in exchange, we will take the mining rights off them and we will take these assets. Because why would you put a ban on them for mining? Clearly, somebody has mined in El Salvador, found all this stuff, and gone, well, that's fucking priceless. A load of that under there. So let's ban mining in El Salvador. Let's create a whole world of crime and freaking chaos above it. No one's going to freaking ever figure out how to mine this stuff out whilst that's going on. And we'll just go away. And in 20, 30, 50 years' time, we can come back and grab all this stuff. It's like our little
Well, like I
insurance
said,
fund.
it's if you read what's it called, the Economic Hitman, it's literally what they do. Is like they do something to exploit the natural resources and get them into a mountain of debt. So pretty much the US owns the resources, and that's what they do. So it's literally this is no surprise. And then you have a bunch of environmentalists going, "Oh, this is horrible," and everyone's, "Oh, listen to environmentalists." It's like, who owns them? God, I sound like Mr. All In at the moment.
I'm trying my best to not say the word Ukraine, but I just said it.
Oh dear.
It's literally exactly what's happening there.
Here's the ban. Here's the ban.
Well, it's also they
well after
overthrew.
5 minutes, we're good. We can say
They,
whatever.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say they also overthrew the president just there for good measures in 2016. You know, not to get us banned.
Anyway, should we The Financial Times has apologized to us. Do we accept their apology?
Nah, fuck them.
Yeah.
So here we are, right? The FT Alphaville, who has like over 100,000 followers. We have an apology, right? So this is the most backhanded apology I've ever fucking read in freaking Bitcoin land, right? So they kind of started with, oh yeah, we've had like a healthy skepticism about crypto. So they basically got Bitcoin is a negative sum game being played by a protocol. It's very clever, hypothetically useful, but it's chronically inefficient as a means of exchange. It's compromised as a store of value. Our post may have promoted the idea that the price of Bitcoin is an arbitrary hype gauge against disconnected form of any utility the token may have. And blah 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 blah. Basically just slagging Bitcoin off all the way down. It's just it's a souvenir and da da da. Then they say we stand behind every single one of those posts, which, by the way, the Financial Times has promoted dozens and dozens and dozens of these things, which largely are summarized by this overall negative sentiment towards Bitcoin. However, nevertheless, Bitcoin has crossed $100,000, significant number. They deserve an apology in light of our long-standing criticism. So here it is. We're sorry that at any time in the last 14 years that you did not buy the thing that number went up. We're sorry if you misunderstood our crypto criticism, but we hate TradeFi. We also hate that too. It's so funny, that entire like apology. They're basically going, we weren't wrong. It's just number went up. And I love their ending is beautiful, right? Because they hate TradeFi, which I never thought TradeFi really was a thing. I always thought that was DeFi. Because you, I think what they mean there is like just buying financial products, like
Yeah,
stock
yeah,
investing.
yeah.
So the
TradFi, traditional finance.
yeah, so the fact that they hate just investing, suddenly it opened my mind to like, well, of course you hate Bitcoin if you hate
Yeah,
investing, because that fundamentally means you don't believe inflation. Inflation's not a thing in your world. Just earning your money, spending it is what you should do with your money. You're a fucking NPC because you've got to understand inflation. You have to understand that you have to invest in traditional finance at the very least just to keep up with inflation. So
yeah.
Bitcoin clearly is like outperforming it by a fucking quantum of like percentage and potentially going to replace the entire fucking thing. And the fact that they kind of had that last swipe at traditional finance at the end just made me go, oh, of course, you're a load of poor, liberal, shaved dead,
Yeah, but
non-binary
it's a
lesbian.
Financial Times. I thought it's meant to be investments. That's what I don't really get.
Well,
That is a
yeah,
very good point. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
The fact that they hate TradeFi in the Financial Times is
Oh,
probably the definition of ironic.
I can't even think why they would say that because you're absolutely right when you know,
is TradeFi a bit like trading 2-on-2, like they gamified investing?
They literally mean, like Sinead just said, TradeFi means traditional finance.
yeah,
Okay.
So
Well, TradeFi is a brand as well.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure someone's like built a company off the back of that name, but it's like DeFi is a name, right? Decentralized finance.
correct.
So
Yeah,
I think weirdly, traditional finance didn't have TradeFi as the name before. Then
no,
DeFi came out and they went backwards and went, oh, well, what's traditional? So traditional finance is just banks, stockbrokers, stocks and shares.
I
And
mean, to be fair,
DeFi,
we got out of TradeFi a
yeah,
while ago, didn't we? Because when we realized, people now talk to me about stocks and shares, and I'm like, I don't even want to hear that. I literally, we came out of everything focused only on Bitcoin.
yeah. It's a very good point. I didn't even realize that how stupid the fact that at the end of this
Yeah.
article they say, trade fi, we hate that too. Like, why are you writing for the fucking Financial Times? It's
Yeah.
literally nonsensical. Like, just go back to your flower garden and fingering your own arsehole.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good Saturday.
Anyway,
Right.
next story. How much Bitcoin should you own? Ooh,
I'm
to
actually done
retire in
this.
10 years.
So I looked at this when our DI representative, Miss No Show, posted it in our group, and I never actually did it.
Do you not? Let's have a look. Ooh, oh, it fills it in. Yeah, because I was in my number one apprehension with this thing, right, is this guy, he works for Unchained, which is connected to Pomp, and he basically talks you through like 4 minutes of how you should use his calculator to work out how much Bitcoin you need. So it's obviously um quite closely connected to them predicting the price of Bitcoin over various amounts of time, which is obviously guesswork. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't filled any of this in, so just in case anyone thinks they've got my numbers, they do not. This is just the default.
So this example is saying you want to retire by the age of 50, which is 19 years, and you've got one Bitcoin. In 19 years, it will be worth 1 million.
Yeah. And you're definitely worth 15 million.
And it reckons you can spend 155 grand. Oh, so it reckons it's really going to pump after once you're 50. So it's going like 25, 30 years is when the price of Bitcoin's going to pump.
Oh, here's where you change the numbers.
No, you change it at the below the basic information.
Ah.
Yeah.
But I'm reading the stuff on the right, and I'm kind of going.
Let's change it. What do you want to do? Do you want to do? We're 42. Let's do that. When we're going to retire, boys? We're going to retire. We're going to retire early, right?
43.
55
How long do
before
I
they
expect to
move it
live?
up to
Fucking
57.
120, baby.
I'm gonna live a long time writing only letters to the local council.
And according to this, I have insufficient funds. Why? How much Bitcoin was I supposed to have?
1 minute what?
It's saying, so it's got percentage growth of Bitcoin. So yeah, it's just a fucking retirement calculator. It's nothing special. It's actually you guessing a percentage. Oh yeah, it's 17% based on previous trends.
Oh yeah, if I can I just increase it? There we go. We've unlocked retirement instead of 100,000 Bitcoin. Instead of 1 Bitcoin, we've got 10 Bitcoin.
So 10 Bitcoin to retire in a year.
Look at the state of that though. Jesus fucking Christ. Have you seen this? How is that 86 billion?
Yeah, it's based on 17% growth per year. And if you have 100 grand spending habit, but the problem is that spending habit doesn't measure in inflation. So it thinks that 100 grand is going to be worth 100 grand in 35 years' time. Whereas it's going to quartered by that time.
Yeah, if not less, if not more, sorry, and you'll have less.
Anyway.
Yeah. So it's a little bit of a flawed calculator. Even my homemade calculator in an Excel spreadsheet factoring inflation for spends in the future.
Yeah, apologies for that story. That was Sir Neverlook that added that in, and it was clearly.
It wasn't Sir Neverlook, was it?
No, not me. Not me.
No, not so that Mrs. No Show.
Yeah.
It was clearly a crock of shit. She didn't show up to even defend that shit story.
So Mrs. No Show showing no value even when not here.
Literally was a probably it's like when you turn up to the 7-a-side team and every time you get past 2 you just lose it. Like you're like a -1. Like you'd rather just play as 6 players.
Yeah.
That's how I feel right now. I wish just no contribution would have been better because Yeah, that model was clearly like not only is it wrong and just silly, if you actually fill it in with the right details, it's potentially like a security risk. Because literally, if you
Yeah.
type in the amount of Bitcoin you really have, like, don't do that. Never type in the amount of Bitcoin you have into a random website just to figure out maybe
Whoops.
what your retirement thing is. Because
So you can figure out how to bloody do compound inflation and interest yourself using Excel.
then that's literally all it's doing. Like, it's such a dumb calculator. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
It's not.
put in 10 Bitcoin as of today, and I ended up with 86 billion by the time I was 86. Like, I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool, but can we have a little bit of realism here?
You're gonna have to take up cocaine quite heavily to get through that.
Holy shit, I could get through the whole of Florida's and Miami's cocaine. That
But
talking
That's
about
what-
Florida.
I was gonna say you've put in a story just to piss off So never look at. You look, it's our monthly segment, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just a shit on property. So let's have a look. The number of houses for sale in Florida skyrocketed, nearly doubled in the last year. And then basically a lot of them are Airbnb rentals. So essentially this is a load of people that have done the whole buy to let kind of scheme.
Yeah.
But essentially what's happened is the market's obviously crashed and um, people aren't renting out these Airbnbs. So they're having to sell them. And there's a huge amount of homes being made available. Admittedly, when you look at Florida, there's a lot on the coast, right? There is a lot on the coast, which clearly is where people want to stay, but it's also where they've had a lot of tornadoes hit, a lot of floods and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I just wanted to have another story to dunk on the property market and tell you why property is not a good investment and why buy-to-let is bad, Bitcoin is good, Sneverlook is wrong, and Florida is right.
I'll, um, I'll share a story with you offline from one of our avid listeners, which I was just like, oh, don't go and poke the bear. But yeah, there's a retort coming up.
What is it? What is the retort? What
So
why
it's about the housing market and how the housing market has gone up.
it's gone up even though loads of people are selling?
Obviously not in Florida.
Oh, okay. But overall it's gone up.
Yeah,
But not in line with inflation. That because clearly that would be silly to just say that it's gone up with inflation.
yeah, true. I'll find
You,
it.
you just know that this retort is already just flaking away. I already feel your confidence just eroding.
I obviously didn't bring it up. I was just like, oh, stop it. But here we go.
It's fine. Look, you can have it. You can literally. I feel like obviously we're moving into shitcoin streets now. You can have it for as long as you want to have it. It's just like, the longer time goes on, the
So
more that I've been moved right. So you can keep fighting it and like, but oh, it's only that area, that area. It's like okay, it's all the areas, but
so
Bitcoin's
we've
gonna
got
absorb
loads
over.
of comments in here. So I think there'll be a major sell-off with the majority of the houses coming from BlackRock. That they were receiving 10 times the monthly rent to house illegals. The grifters over and the houses are no longer needed. They can't afford the property taxes, FEMA insurance, and homeowners insurance. And then say those areas are some of the most desirable property in the US. The old owners will be bought out. There are always people with enough dollars to buy ocean Gulf property and rebuild with newer technology. Yeah, so there's all sorts of like theories going on there within the comments. Nothing particularly solid.
Yeah, because obviously I must admit, like there's always like a fundamental underpinning of the housing market in the fact that the elite own a huge amount of it. It's just the argument largely is does it outperform inflation?
Some are
Meaningfully.
saying it's storm damage as well.
Yeah. Well, of course, like that's what I was saying. Like in Florida, like it's a lot
Yeah.
of coastal areas and they get smashed. But my fundamental argument against property, which is for the individual owner of the buy-to-let market, is that as the cost of living continues to increase and increase and increase, essentially you're going to have a lot of defaults. So where these properties end up in the buy-to-let market is in BlackRock and Vanguard. That's where they want it to end up. To where all like the taxes are increasing, blah blah. So the independent person that thinks that they can buy 5 or 10 properties, rent them out, and become financially secure off the back of that, they're going to squeeze you out, just as they are with the farmers, with the inheritance tax and all the various like onerous vaccinations and tests that they have to do for TB and all this. They're squeezing them all out, and it's like, well, why? It's because they want central ownership of these things. Like, the biggest problem about small independent property owners is the fact that you are independently wealthy. So they are looking to take that away. Same with the farmers. You're a threat. So it's not the fact that like farming and property, for me, if we're on a Bitcoin standard, great investments. Fantastic. Food, housing, nailed in. The problem is we are living in an era of authoritarian governments that are losing control and they need to gain that control back. So to control that, to get that control back, they need to control housing and control the food. And hence, housing and farming is under threat. They're also trying to get control back of the money. It's just that money can be decentralized and put onto the internet. You can't put housing on the internet. You can't put farming on the internet. It needs to be in a physical location, and that's its biggest downside. They can come after that. They can tax it. They can grab it. So whilst I was putting on there for a meme, it's also it does have a little bit of a serious point. Because any money you have in property, look, it's not yours. It's actually, as we say, right? Any money in the existing financial system, it might be performing really well, but when it all collapses, what happens then? Can they freeze it? Can they steal it from you? Like the answer to all those questions is yes. Can they take your Bitcoin? They can't. They can't take your Bitcoin. It's on your freaking hardware wallet. And that's all I'm trying to do is like get people that are into property to go over the next, at some point in the next 10 to like 100 years, the ownership of property and money and investments and gold and whatever else in IOUs that you have with your government, they will fucking steal it. They will. So the more you have in Bitcoin, the more you get to keep. Otherwise, you might think that your property portfolio, your investment portfolio, your pension portfolio is all going up. And you're going to be like, oh, he was wrong, I was right. And at some point, they're going to grab it. They either tax it or freeze it. They will grab it in some way.
The phrase "he was right." We always say that, don't we? Eventually, like once again, Mr. Orlin was right.
Yeah. And it is dark. I really wish if I could literally have like a wish and it's like that I was wrong in that instance, I would love to say it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It really makes me sad to say that like our governments are going to steal those types of things, but like, come on, the trend is like they fucking stole everything.
They steal everything. There's no two ways about it.
Yeah, before we get on to our last story, I literally just have one another little tax rant, which is like hugely like probably a humble brag that my brother will have a go at me for like even bringing it up, but I'm gonna bring it up anyway. And it's like I'm trying to build a tennis court on um on some of the
On
land
the
I've got,
grounds.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
getting quoted like 75K, right, to build that in pounds. I'm like, all right, fine. they're like, oh, but by the way, 20% VAT. So that takes up to
So
90,
90.
right? So straight away, like, wait, what did the government do for that 15K? Oh, that's right, nothing. Right. So right, they get 15K for nothing. Okay, well, how do I raise 90K? Well, I need to sell 110K worth of Bitcoin, don't I? Because
Yeah.
when I sell it, even though I've paid 50% tax on every fucking penny I've ever earned, I invest that into Bitcoin, and then when it comes out, they want another 20%. So I have to sell 110K worth of Bitcoin to basically have
Ah.
90 left to then pay the guys. So to buy
And
75
then,
grand worth of thing, I need to sell 110.
in 4 years' time, that's going to be a tennis court, which is probably worth around about 1.5 million.
Oh, that's the bit. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the hard part.
Whereas, you could put up a net, those high nets, and then you play badminton because you don't need no bouncy grass for badminton, do you? Think
Right,
of those
man,
save sats.
I've already got a
Yeah.
badminton court in the barn, but I
Why do you
want
need
to
a
fuck.
tennis one, man?
I want to
Stick
Look
to
at
fuck.
you,
that.
look at you, Mr. Fiat.
But at some point, I want a football pitch, tennis court, netball, basketball, hockey. I want a fucking
Um,
pitch. And the other thing that I didn't even fucking mention then is that apparently because the land I'm building it on is a paddock, supposedly that isn't authorized for a tennis court. That's like residential use. So everyone I've called up so far is
Well,
like, you need
they're not
planning
going to be able to do
permission.
something if you do some badminton and put one of those, sticks with a ball and a piece of rope on it, and you
yeah,
work it
yeah,
round.
yeah.
Like Mr. High Time Preference over here.
I
Like, why don't
know.
you just take up a Starbucks habit twice a day?
It's very true. I do have all those things
Why don't you just get
already.
them to play croquet? Just knock the balls through this
Yeah,
little.
if you've got a roller as well, actually, you could do all this
Yeah,
yourself. I'm
do
saving
all
you
of
tens of
this.
thousands. I'll come round.
Pay us, pay us for
I'll
consultancy
get a
ideas of how to
lawnmower
save you money.
and I'll get one of those old school cricket roller things. You just roll it over the area till it's flat.
Yeah.
Man, good luck battling the bolt and the fucking moles out here.
Get a
Yeah,
giant farm cat. Giant farm cat will go and eat the moles.
Yeah.
they fucking won't. I got two of them. They eat the rats and the mice. They do not eat moles. But
They're obviously not hungry enough.
yeah, maybe. But I just fucking like hate the fact that like even imagine right, all I would be doing right is flattening the land so I can play sport on it. And there's an argument to say that because I've converted the use from agricultural to residential, the government could come in and threaten me with prison time unless I dug up my own tennis court and made it into just rough grass again. And if I didn't, they
It's
put me in
just
prison. And what
it's just
what
ludicrous,
fucking
isn't it?
what land are we living in? It's just fucking
Yeah.
nuts. I'm not building like some massive house or like because I kind of get it to a certain degree, but like the paddocks that I have like are literally just for residential horses to just fucking roam around. They're not. This isn't agricultural land that is where the country is dependent on this land for food, right? For the last 20 years, the land that I have is just had a couple of horses knocking around on it. And what I'm suggesting is for a little bit of it, I would like to build a tennis court so the kids can just play on it all year round because the grass during the winter is like super wet and muddy, so it's hard to play on it. Throw them in there. I can
Well,
throw a
how
few
do you think their
balls.
skills are going to get better? They're going to become much better tennis players in the mud.
They
Better
won't.
footing, able to deal with slipping.
I
God, you just
say,
make them into soft children.
yeah.
Sound like you work for
Spend
the
the money on the lessons, take them somewhere else, and keep the Bitcoin.
It just sounds like you're being a bit of a Karen here.
I hate
This is where your Bitcoin brethren needs to talk you down off the ledge. And yeah, and give you that verbal
And
slap to say
here we
no.
go. So, Dr. Evil 10%'s giving you some advice here. Badminton court. All you need to do is mow the grass. When more of those swing ball things. Table tennis. Bam. Look at all that racquetball sport which you've got going on there.
Yeah. Um, yeah, you don't need it. You
Yeah,
don't
if
need
young
it.
MBA's listening, he knows I'm right.
No, I actually appreciate it. I like it. I like it.
You don't
you want
you
you
don't
want to
you don't
spend all
need
this
it.
money?
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Lower your time preference. Take them to find the nearest courts and take them there instead. And they'll appreciate getting off the land. And yeah, it's great that they could practice there, but no, don't do it.
Okay. Okay. I consider that. I consider it. But imagine though, like this like fast forward 100 years, right? Like if money is no object, would you like to have those facilities just at hand, just so the kids can
Uh,
go out and play and do whatever?
I messaged Dr. Evil 10% the other day. Do you remember? I
yeah,
said, the richer we get, the tighter we get.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. It's like
But
when I go to buy something, I go, I want this. I'm gonna put it in my basket on my online shop. I mean, I'll come back about a week later and I'll think whether I actually want to buy it, and I'm just like, I'm gonna hesitate. I'm going, you don't really want it, do you? So I don't buy it.
yeah, that is a great way of testing yourself. Weirdly, I tested
Yeah.
myself with this whole garden thing because I was just going to, and I've got a very bad habit. I think I've explained on this pod where at 4 in the morning when I'm at my weakest, I just buy my outlandish items. But I commissioned 3 landscape gardeners to essentially build a plan for what we could have in gardens and play areas. And we've had 2 of them in so far. Just throw them in the bin. Got a last guy coming in on Saturday, but I have had a guy come in about the tennis courts, and he's got me kind of excited. And I'm like, yeah,
See, this is what happened. What's happened? You got married, you got soft, whereas 4 years ago you're living in your one-bedroom flat, refusing to move because you want to spend more. But here we are. You want to build tennis courts. What's going to be next? Like a nice little waterfall feature down the side of your house.
and I there's something about I literally would love to be out there in the tennis court, and bizarrely, I don't know why, but my premonition is there's an automatic tennis ball firer at the other end. It's not even a
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
fucking person, and it's firing a
Yeah.
tennis ball at me, and I'm just knocking it back
I
like a
think the
hundred
one thing which
times, just like clunk, clunk, and I'm like, love it,
I think
love
the
it.
one
No
thing
one
which
is
I'd
telling
want
me
would
off. I can hit it wherever I want.
I think the one thing which I'd want would be a proper swimming pool.
Mm,
That'd be pretty immense if
yeah.
money was no object.
Yeah,
I think you
I
can
must
get
admit they
an
are meaningfully expensive because they have like 50 to 100K cost every year to heat the thing.
Really?
I
Yeah,
was gonna say I thought you could get a swimming pool for cheaper because an MD that we all know and love dearly
yeah,
had built
that
one
was
of those.
he did. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was like a fucking big bath.
Yeah,
It was tiny.
I'm sure.
It's one of those stupid little swimming pools because I nearly built I nearly bought a property that had a proper swimming pool in it.
I
So
remember. Yeah,
You can get one of those stand ones for £1,349.
and of course you
That's a
can.
bit, a 24-foot one. Ooh. And then I
yeah.
think you can get one of those tube ones, where it puts a current down it.
Yeah. But like, even that, like try heating that for the year. It will cost you that again every year. And if you have a
Bloody
proper
hell.
swimming pool, so the swimming pool I was looking at was about It's like 5 meters wide and then 20 meters long. That was, the swimming pool that the property I was looking at had. That would be tens of thousands of pounds a year to heat it.
It reckons, quick Google search, about 1,500 a year.
Yeah, for a tiny one, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't say size.
Yeah, for a tiny one. Because the biggest problem was like literally this, it was all kind of um in the ballpark of rationality, but then the Ukraine war happened, and then the price of energy just skyrocketed by like 3 or 4 times. And it suddenly took, oh right, yeah, a swimming pool might cost 50 grand to put in and 5 grand a year to heat. If you can afford that, then do it. But then the Ukraine war happened. You're like, oh yeah, it still costs 15 grand to put the swimming pool in. But instead of 5K to heat it every year, it costs 15 or 20. And you go, well, that's just
Mm.
silly. And essentially what it's going to lead you to do is to not heat it. So if you don't heat it, it means you can't use it. It's going to be fucking Baltic in there. And yeah, it's just silly. Anyway, talking about silly things, should we get on to our last story of the week? Hawk tour girl. Oh, what the hell? She's actually deleted the original tweet.
It's a post.
That's kind of hilarious. Nobody sold. Okay, Einstein. So yeah, just in case anybody didn't know, the Hawk tour girl essentially launched her own coin. It just went to the moon and then plummeted back down to zero. And for anyone thinking, oh, how long does this chart go for? Is it a week? Is it a month? No, this is a 20-minute chart. Um, it went straight up
Jesus.
and
Is
straight
that a
down.
20-minute? Wow, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, essentially, I think in reality, what happened was even she was scammed. These boys, they had this coin ready to go, um, and essentially what they managed to do was, because they've learned from previous cycles of, oh, there's loads of pre-mined coins that's going to get dumped on the new buyers. So what they told everyone was there's no pre-mine. This coin, the Hawk Torg coin, is going to be 100% available to people. There's a certain amount of coins that are registered to Haley Walsh, which is the Hawk Tour girl. She can't sell for a year, but there's going to be some in the foundation. And essentially, what happened? They launched a coin, and then in the first couple of seconds, when the price is zero, what happened is 97% of the coin got bought up by the foundation for zero. So they can argue it was just fair. Like, well,
Mm.
it's not fair because the only person that fucking knew you launched it was you, and then you brought all your
Yeah.
coin. So then they finally tell everybody else the final 3% gets brought up by fans. That's when the price goes up. And then they just sell their 97% that they've already got. They just dump it. So the price goes up from 0 to 50 million. They dump it all on the fans. They make their millions. Haley Walsh is dragged in onto Twitter Spaces by CoffeeZilla to go, what the fuck is going on? It turns out she's paid 150 grand to be the face of this. The guys behind it, clearly the guys that made the millions, they're going, oh no, like we've been attacked by sniper bots and all this bollocks. Like, no, you didn't. No, you didn't.
No, it didn't.
The sniper
No.
bots are you. The
It's
retail
been planned.
investors. Yeah, like the coin went up and it went down, like but completely as designed. And surprise, surprise, this story went on here about 3 or 4 days ago. Nothing has come out since because I think the Hawk Tour girl has realized, oh, I've been used. I made 150 grand. I'm kind of happy with that. But behind the scenes, there's a load of developers that launched this coin that made millions, if maybe even tens of millions in 20 minutes. And then there's millions of people that obviously bought their $100, $1,000 worth of this coin. They all just got wrecked. So
What
play
I
silly
don't,
games.
what I don't get is if, yeah, there still seems to be a lot of silly money around, right? Because we've had the NFTs, etc., and then obviously all of these meme coins that we were speaking about last week as well. But people are still doing it, and it was like how? Where's this? Where's this extra money still coming from?
They got a bit, haven't they? It's nothing
Yeah,
crazy, but yeah, the Hawk Tour girl she literally was globally famous for probably a month.
yeah.
So clearly she's monetized that through a random shitcoin and they managed to gather 50 million in a pot in 20 minutes.
Hmm.
Yeah, doesn't surprise me. Yeah, there's probably 100 million people that would put $100 into this. Yeah, yeah. And that's what happened.
Crazy.
And they all got wrecked. The beautiful thing is, like, even the people that thought they were clever, that thought they were going, oh, I know this Hawk Tour girl shitcoin is clearly a pump and dump. So what I'll do is buy it early, let the retards come in later, then I'll dump it on them. What ended up happening is, no. Anybody that bought got dumped on. The entire pump and dump lasted 20 minutes. So only the people that were insiders made any money. Everybody that bought it on the open market lost money.
Jesus.
So for anyone out there
Crazy,
that
right?
thinks they might be able to outperform Bitcoin, go into the meme coin streets, this is who you're dealing with. It's scammers, fraudsters, opportunists. Just don't do it. It's silly. Just buy Bitcoin and forget about it, and then earn some more money and buy more Bitcoin. That is like it's easy. It's
I was
guaranteed.
just about to say, it sounds too easy. There's got to be a catch. I need to be watching the charts every day. Like, there's got to be more than this.
No,
No,
do that.
um, this is it.
It's this is what we discovered, pretty much 6 or 7 years ago. Just buy Bitcoin.
Yeah, yeah.
You can evaluate every single asset down to its nth degree, but nothing matches up against Bitcoin. If you go into the shitcoin streets, I think, and what I've noticed about this kind of Hawk Tour stuff is that the shitcoin streets are getting more and more kind of smart about how quickly they scam. They've been
Yeah.
and they're really, really clever. There was a lot of the pre-warnings to identify what a scam was. They removed them from this coin, like the pre-mine, and they managed to make the founder have a long lock time period, but essentially by doing those things, it made it look like the coin was secure and there was no pump and dump possible. But then they still did it, even though they didn't break those rules. So you go,
Hmm.
but if you go down and invest in meme coins, they literally are memes. Don't be surprised when you get wrecked. So in reality, go down to the casino and just put it on number 27 or something. Just
Play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
yeah. If you want to be sensible, just DCA into Bitcoin. If not,
I'll never win that way. I'll never win.
yeah,
That's the mentality, isn't it?
yeah. And you're basically just being hawk toured on by the financial system. You are the penis.
Sounds like a good note to finish on.
It does. All right. Well, there we have it. Pod 162 brought to you by Mr. All-In, aka the Trillion Dollar Man, Dr. Evil 10%, aka the People's Champ, myself, So Never Look, aka the Excellence of Execution, and surprise, surprise, no surprise, Mrs. No Show was not here. Peace.